Yeah, Jason Martinez, Brian Smith. It is the Flyers Game Day Show as the Flyers get set to embark on a 5-game road trip. They started out a little puck drop against the Detroit Red Wings. A little revenge, too. Detroit won that back-to-back home and home a few weeks back. So Flyers, a little revenge on their mind. Another 1,000th game for a 2006 NHL draft pick. And the trade deadline is come and gone, Brian.
It has. We are finally going to settle down here, right? It's a couple interesting things going on here tonight. One of which is probably relatively insignificant to the guys in the game, but the Flyers are not used to losing to Detroit a bunch in a year. They've lost both games so far just in the last few weeks, and they haven't gone without a point against Detroit in a season where they play them more than once in a long time. So it's a weird situation with them because they used to be in the West for so long, and then they came over East in 2013. And then, we talked about the lineup settling down after the deadline and all that. It's probably maybe still one more game of flux here tonight. The Flyers basically are going to play everybody that's available and doesn't necessarily equate what a normal lineup would be. But they have some possibilities for some more guys coming in for the next game on this trip on Thursday. So it might be a little bit of getting through tonight and then settling in for the rest of the trip.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the guys, I think everybody, when you're a team that's not going to the playoffs, drifts around the room and on eggshells a little bit, even though like maybe your name's not out there a whole heck of a lot. You just know there's a lot in flux. And you go, okay, in the offseason, I may have to deal with this again because there's going to be changes.
Right.
But I can at least settle down from now until basically the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And with knowing I'm going to be here. And for the remainder of the season, the final 20 games, I know I'm going to be here. So I can concentrate on hockey and not worry about, am I going to have to find an apartment? Is my girlfriend going to be able to come out and see us? How about my wife and my kid? There's all these variables when you get moved. Because like when we get a new job, we give our 2 weeks notice. And then we go, okay, we'll move out there in 2 more weeks. We'll find a place to live and get settled. And then we'll start working. These guys are on a plane. Like Owen Tippett was acquired on Saturday. He was flown here Saturday evening. He was in the lineup on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean it happened last night too, didn't it? With Marc-Andre Fleury. Traded. I don't know at what time during the day, but and again, it's Minnesota to Chicago. It's not exactly a cross country flight, but Bill Guerin and Craig Leopold from the Wild flew out there on Leopold's private plane, pick up Marc-Andre Fleury. They bring him back. He comes out of the car from the airport, meets the media before his teammates, and then walks right out there and backs up Cam Talbot. I mean,
Did you see him in warm-up, by the way?
No, I didn't see the warm-up.
I'll send you the video. He was an animal.
Yeah?
Yeah. He's like sliding across, making these incredible glove saves. I'm going, boy, that's just Fleury, man.
That's
and
crazy.
He'll assimilate with any team, right?
Yeah. And then Claude Giroux somehow or another walked into this situation that I guess Ben Sherratt did too, where he got 4 days or something like that to get ready. And I'm not even sure Sherratt is going to Florida, from what I understand. He might be just hanging out and waiting for them to get there to Montreal.
Why cross the border, right?
Yeah, it's just a weird situation right now to have to do something like that. So those guys have it kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, which is rarely what happens, but just with the scheduling fluke, that's what happens in this case.
Yeah. It is funny. Like Sherratt can get ice up there, obviously, and they'll get out and get a workout and do all that stuff. Meet all his teammates when they come up. There's no sense in doing the border travel and all that if you don't have to.
Right.
He's already there, so he doesn't have to go through the same testing because he's already in country. Because any team that goes in has got to get 2 negative PCR tests within the 72 hours or some rule. I don't know what it is.
Something like that. Yeah. It's been so long since the. Since we've really had to deal with it that I haven't been paying a ton of attention to it. But it does happen. And we ran into that problem last week, right? When Coetzee went on IR. You probably would have gone to Ottawa, but you couldn't because it was only like a day's notice.
I didn't have enough time to get the PCR test.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is Sherratt's going from Montreal, and Canada's been so restricted still, to Florida. It's just like the wild, wild west.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be going like, I don't need a mask down here, I guess. And
Ron DeSantis will personally welcome him to liberation, I guess, right?
Yeah. It's almost like defecting from Canada. So this is the team that's going to come down the stretch. Brian, one of the interesting things I thought yesterday, Chuck Fletcher spoke with the media, and then we saw the paper transactions, but only two guys that weren't on transacted paper wise to the Lehigh Valley Phantoms at 3 o'clock to be on their playoff roster. How about Morgan Frost not on that list?
Yeah, it's a very odd situation for folks that aren't familiar with it, and I am familiar with it, and sometimes it confuses me. But there is a rule where it's kind of a two separate parts to this rule. One of them is at the NHL trade deadline, a two-way player has to be on the AHL roster at the deadline in order to be eligible to play in the American Hockey League anymore that season. So you've got that. And the flip side of that is that you're only permitted 4 regular recalls from the American Hockey League after the trade deadline.
That's just ridiculous.
And I don't know. I'm sure there's a reason for this. I can't tell you exactly what it is. I'm not sure, but I'm sure there's a reason for this rule. So if the Flyers had sent down all 4 guys on paper and then called them all back up, they would have been out of regular recalls.
Yeah.
Now, and if they wanted to take a look at, a Phantom, they want to give Ratcliffe another look, or take a look at somebody else.
Zamula,
they wouldn't have been able to make a regular recall. Now they at least have 2 regular recalls. And I can tell you from the experience that I had over a decade ago now, that it's very easy to create an emergency. So you can make any emergency recall that you want, and it won't count against your 4 recalls. But I guess Chuck Fletcher didn't really want to burn all 4 recalls right now. So Owen Tippett and Morgan Frost, they don't go down, and really the only what that means secondarily will be that Morgan Frost will be on the Flyers the rest of the year. He will not go up and down, and that the 2 of them won't be eligible for the playoffs should the Phantoms make it. They are on the outside right now. They're close to being on the inside. If the Phantoms were locked into a playoff spot, would he have done it differently? I don't know, but right now they're kind of on the fence. So that's the rule. That's the weird wrinkle at the trade deadline between the NHL and the AHL. But I think if the Phantoms, if they want to get the Phantoms reinforcements, they can do it through some some of these free agent signings from the college ranks and things like that, which is more of what we're anticipating. We saw one today, actually. Hayden Hodgson had already been with the Phantoms, but he wasn't on an NHL deal. He's on one now. So that'll be, that'll be a guy that, maybe he'll be an emergency. He'll come up for a bit. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. So if they sign a guy like Bobby Brink or Ronnie Attard or Noah Cates to an ELC, that wouldn't be considered a call-up if they came right up and played for the Flyers. Because we do see some guys come out of the college game and go right to the NHL.
Yes. Yeah, you do. There's, there's a couple different ways that you can go about it based on my understanding. One of them is, you can sign a guy to an NHL deal that begins this year. And then, you'd basically burn a year. It'd be 6 weeks or whatever. And then you are in the second year of your deal going into next year. You can also sign a guy to a pro contract that starts next season, and then you sign them to a tryout agreement, basically an amateur tryout agreement for a certain period of time. I don't know if you can do that for the rest of the season or not, but there's different ways you can go about this when you're bringing a guy in like this, and that could certainly be one of them. I know that the one they signed Hodgson to today started in 21-22, so that's kind of effective immediately. But yeah, you can you could sign a guy right to the NHL team and then send him down. It's just a matter of getting him back up, I guess. I take that back. No, he would have to have been on the AHL roster, so they could not actually do that part of it. They can sign, like, I believe the Phantoms can sign an ATO for a guy and get him in there.
Yeah.
So again, a lot of different wrinkles to this that it takes an expert to understand, and I'm not quite there yet.
Well, the one thing, you see some of the college free agents, like a real high-end college free agent, part of that negotiation process on where he goes will often come with that when I sign with you this season, I'm going to burn my first year. Yeah. So it's a year closer. It's a negotiation tactic to get a year closer to free agency, because that's where players want to get to. That's when the money comes.
Right, exactly. There's all these different quirks you're going to see too coming along here with entry level contracts. Once you're 23, I believe your entry level contract becomes 2 years instead of 3, and then I think after that it's 1 year somewhere in there. There's different lengths depending on your age, because I don't believe you can be on an entry level contract after the age of 26. Might even be 25. So that sort of thing is in there as well. And you're right. Like, when you get in the entry level program, it's designed that a guy like Carter Hart, for instance, first 3 years, he's limited to making about $925,000 in base salary. And then, after that entry level deal is up, that's when they can go up. But the team is afforded a few years there where they, even if you're Connor McDavid and you come out and blow the doors off, they don't have to pay you huge money until after that ELC is up.
Which is why it's always important to have a few guys that contribute pretty good roles for you on an ELC, on a team, to really help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's vital to be able to, spread that money out to other people.
Yep, absolutely. Let's take a quick timeout. It's the Flyers and Red Wings, a game 1 of a 5-game road trip. We'll kind of preview the trip, preview the game, that and much more on Flyers Game Day. It's Brian Smith, Jason Martinez on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. Detroit Red Wings get set to Kick off a 5-game road trip for the Flyers. Starts tonight in Detroit, and it'll head to St. Louis coming up on Thursday, 8 o'clock puck drop there. And then Friday against the Colorado Avalanche, 9 o'clock in Colorado. And then Sunday at 6 o'clock against Nashville, and they'll wrap up the 5-game trip against Minnesota, maybe Marc-Andre Fleury on the 29th, and they'll kick off the month of April back home against Toronto on April 2nd. It's a busy trip.
Fleury's got the most second most wins against the Flyers of any goaltender in league history. So,
is that right? Who's got the most?
Henrik.
Lundqvist.
Boy, Henrik.
Yeah. How about that team? You know, they go right from Richter to Lundqvist down to Shesterkin.
That was Shesterkin. Oh my!
I got a text message today. Speaking of the Rangers, from Steven Valiquette, former goaltender for the Rangers, and one of their analysts right now on MSG. And he just texted me today and said, well, Justin, how much is Braun going to help the Rangers? Because he's one of the guys that was dealt. He goes to the Rangers, and, good right side, right shot guy, veteran guy that's played a lot of playoffs, and he'll help that team on the blue line for sure.
Yeah. He'll help them on the blue line, and he'll help them just in general, I think, from his experience. That's a relatively young team there.
Blue line.
They've got some veterans, but they've got a lot of guys that have not been to where Justin Braun has been, and he knows what it takes to get to have success in the playoffs. And by success, I mean, a lot of people just look at Stanley Cups, and if you don't win a Stanley Cup, you're a failure, whatever. To me, if you've gotten into the Final Four, that's a successful season by any measure. And just when in terms of how you're trying to evaluate your team, I mean, obviously no player is going to say reaching the Final Four is a successful run, but in terms of when you don't blow up your team because you get to the conference final 3 years in a row and you don't make that last step. You make little tweaks. It's not like you got to kind of look at the big picture there. So he knows what it takes to get there and get it done, and how to manage your body through. I mean, it's the hardest thing to do in sports, I think, is to win the Stanley Cup. So it's a big help for them, both on and off the ice.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I said to DeValley. I just said he's a pro's pro. He's not a rah-rah guy, but he's just a pro, and he's been through the playoff wars before in San Jose, went to a final, and we'll see how much he is able to help the New York Rangers. What did you see the videos of Giroux in the Panthers uniform and stuff?
I have not
weird looking
videos yet. I did just see a tweet about what their PP1 was today. It's like somebody playing NHL 22 and just putting whoever they want on. Giroux, Duclair, Barkov, Reinhart, and Huberdeau.
Not bad.
PP1.
Yeah, the top line, by the way, is Barkov, Giroux, and Verhaeghe.
Yeah, okay.
That's their number one line now. So he jumps in and goes around the number one line. It looked weird seeing him in red,
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, at least
bizarre.
It's just orange. It's better than it would look. Better would be if it was blue.
Yeah, if it was Ranger blue. Or Penguin yellow and black.
Yeah.
Let's go there, can we?
But it looks like just in terms of how they're running it, because right now Ekblad is hurt. He's out for the regular season.
5 forwards.
They've had him on the point. He's usually on the half wall when he's with the Flyers, but running half wall, running point now. So it'd be a fun game to watch there.
Well, that's the thing. I don't understand why teams don't do that more. Just put your 5 best forwards on the ice. And I know forwards aren't used to retreating and defending in an odd man rush situation, but you're hoping that that's not going to happen. But it could, obviously, and it has. But to me, I don't know why more teams don't experiment with the 5 forwards. I know Scott Gordon did it when he was the interim coach for a period.
Yeah, we did see a little bit of that then.
Yeah, I think it'd be innovative, and I don't know why teams don't do it. Like I see the 3-on-3 sometimes, and I wonder, just put 3 forwards on the ice.
Yeah,
if you only have 1 or 2 defensemen that can, and you're going 3 rotation back basically as the defender, just use 3 forwards. I don't know. What do I know?
Give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, look, their power play hasn't worked this year. Geez, put 5D on the ice tonight for the Flyers on the power play.
Well,
at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, how's first line center Kevin Connaughton sound?
Yeah, Do you see him taking a face off? Nick
That's what
Sealer coming in for the draw.
that's what the line rushes were tonight. Obviously, he's just kind of a placeholder there. It looks like the Flyers are going to go 11-7.
Yeah.
And that's probably the only option they got. But he took line rushes with Atkinson and Van Riemsdyk.
Did he know where to go?
I don't know. That's a great question. I
Center curl. He's like,
look at the line rushes again. But
yeah. Yeah, they're
no,
doing like a standard breakout, and he doesn't know where to curl to.
those were the lines that Olivia Reiner tweeted out because she's on site there actually watching it. We have a video feed, but we don't really see everything on this feed in warmups. But yeah, I mean, with 11-7, you're going to end up seeing something a little bit unusual. Mostly probably those last two forwards rotating in every now and then. Somebody's probably going to draw double shift in the center position. We'll see how it goes. But again, it's what they have tonight in terms of who's available. Their hope is that Nate Thompson might be back for Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
So that would be the fourth center there. Yeah, it's funny. Poor Coatsy actually called me today. I'm missing somebody. He couldn't figure out what the forwards were going to be.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, we've seen defensemen go up and play forward in the last couple. Of course, Sam Moran did that. Went up, played a little wing. That was kind of a Hail Mary of an experiment, I guess. It didn't work, and we haven't seen Big Sam this entire year. A lot of people always wanted to see Shane Gostisbehere moved up to play some wing, and I thought that was a horrific idea. But here's the lines tonight: Connaughton, Van Riemsdyk, and Atkinson. But Hayes, Farabee, and Konechny. That line's been clicking. That's a real line and playing real well. Frost, Lindblom, and Owen Tippett. And then you got Patrick Brown, Zach McEwen, and Max Willman. Your D pairs: Provorov and York, Sanheim and Ristolainen, Yandel and Sealer, and Carter Hart gets the start tonight. 11 forwards, 7D tonight for the Flyers.
Yep. So it's a bit of a wild card tonight. It's going to be one of those games where you're going to see. I think you'll see those two lines stay together quite a bit. I don't imagine that Van Riemsdyk and Atkinson are the extra two forwards, but we'll see. We'll see where this all shakes out. I am looking forward again to seeing Owen Tippett here. Very good debut. Looked real good with those two guys. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I thought he showed real well in his first game with the Flyers. We'll see if he can repeat the performance tonight. Again, I talked to him yesterday, and he's on today's Flyers Daily, and asking him kind of where his game's at. Because if you look at his AHL game log, he had like a 7-game point streak going. Had like 11 or 12 points in those 7 games. So his game was in a good place when it got here, even though he was being, as you call it, asset managed at the end there and scratched, which, I guess is part of the deal these days. But his game looks like it's in a good place. Let's take one last time out. We'll come back, and we'll take you right up to the countdown to face off with Tim Saunders and Steve Coates up in Detroit. Stay tuned. We're back after this on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. Counting down the minutes to Flyers and Detroit Red Wings, the beginning of a 5-game road trip that'll take them from Detroit to St. Louis to Colorado to Nashville to Minnesota. Not the usual destinations. Matter of fact, none of these destinations were visited a season ago.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the Central Division roadie that usually I feel like usually they do this in like a couple different trips. A lot of times you get, you get Colorado on the way out to California or something like that.
Yep.
But after today, they go back into the Central Time Zone. They haven't left the Eastern Time Zone since January 4th, believe it or not. So they go into Central Time after this one here, back to back. St. Louis and Colorado is not the not the most optimal thing that you got to deal with, but again, you have to get used to that altitude real quick. But then Nashville and Minnesota, just again taking a little bit of a tour here. But yeah, I didn't see any of these teams due to that whole thing last year, and even with Nashville was here the other day, whenever it was St. Patrick's
Last
Day,
Thursday, yeah.
game, yeah. So they're here on that day, and both of the Nashville games were wiped out in 1920. They were both after the break, and so the Flyers had not played Nashville since New Year's Day of 2019. It was like almost 1,200 days since they'd seen him, and it was the longest. It was the second longest gap the Flyers ever had between playing a team. There was a gap about 20 days larger with Arizona than Phoenix, but around the lockout in 03, 04, 05 in there. They played him in 03 and didn't play him again until 07. Yeah, it's hard. It was just kind of hard to believe it'd been that long because the last couple of years have just been, one giant blur. But this is you're gonna get to see some faces that they haven't seen or some places they haven't seen in a long time.
6 straight games too for this team against teams that are ticketed for the playoffs. St. Louis is going to the postseason. Obviously, Colorado is. They're pretty good. Nashville, Minnesota, Toronto, and then the Rangers, all postseason bound teams. So this is a stretch for the Flyers against good competition after tonight.
Yeah.
But tonight, got to get a win against this Detroit team. Detroit comes in right now into the season. I mean, they were a team kind of hanging around there for a little while, but eventually kind of got overcame. But 62 games played, 25, 30, and 7, 57 points, sitting in that 5th spot in the Atlantic Division. But they're 2-7-1 in their last 10. They're not playing well. Flyers come in through 62 games, 20, 31, and 11, 51 points, 7th spot of the Metropolitan Division of the Eastern Conference, 4-5-1 in their last 10. And that's about as good a stretch as they've had since the beginning of the season.
Yeah, this is a team that, again, was, kind of, just kind of, down in the dumps a little bit. And then, Steve Yzerman comes in and it's going to take him some time to turn this around, but, he knows what he's doing. He's very, very much responsible for what Tampa Bay has become. And so he is, kind of slowly working this team back into what it needs to be in order to be another 25-year playoff team, whatever Detroit was before they finally missed it for the first time a few years back. So they're figuring it out. They've been very streaky this year. They string together wins followed by several consecutive losses, and then once they get out of that habit, you're going to see this team, I think, start to be a little bit more of a force to be reckoned with here. They're definitely something to keep an eye on. Next 2-3 years, getting back into the swing of things.
One thing that Steve Yzerman has said, and I would be always careful dealing with a guy like Yzerman because there's not many trades that he loses, right?
Right. Yeah.
But he did say, other than basically 2 players on their team, and one of them is Moritz Seider, who we'll talk about in a second, he's open for business. And when I look at this team, there's 2 guys that I'd be really interested if I was Chuck Fletcher, and that is center Dylan Larkin, and that is left winger Tyler Bertuzzi. I like them both. They happen to be number 1 and 2 in scoring on the team as well.
Yep. Yeah. And so, they're going to, he'd have to look at what the return is there, obviously. How quickly do you want to add some other veterans? Larkin's the captain of this club. He's been here the whole time. So it's hard to believe he's actually getting to the point where he's a veteran because
Yeah.
I don't feel like he's been around that long. But the funny Dylan Larkin story that I had was back when the Flyers were hosting a USA Hockey event. It was some sort of showcase or something like that, and we're up in one of the meeting rooms at the Wells Fargo Center. The media is there making the announcement, and there's this kid leaning against the wall, and everybody's wondering whose intern came. Like we're like, who is this guy? And then the USA Hockey folks running the show introduced him as Dylan Larkin.
Yeah.
We were playing Detroit that night, and we're all looking at each other like, oh, okay. Now it makes sense because he had played in the showcase event before. So he was pretty baby-faced when he hit the league a few
He's only
years
25
back.
now.
Only 25 now, but he is going to hit 500 games on his career here in the next couple of weeks. He's at 490 coming into tonight. So it's really kind of amazing to think that it's been that long for him. 350 points almost going into 500 games with this team. I mean, that's pretty darn good. So, he's just waiting for it to break out.
And obviously there's a lot of speed there. I say to him, hey, Dylan, did you see the ceremony they did for Claude Giroux for 1,000? How about your next 500 here?
Yeah. I'll take it.
Right?
I would take it. He was drafted in Philadelphia, believe it or not, in 2015. So that'd be a good place for him to land. Again, it's a matter of what they're looking to add in Detroit. Do you?
I think be careful with Yzerman because
he's
a bit of a wizard.
But do you offer up somebody like a Provorov or something to help them on defense when try to get some offense back? Depends on what else really you're able to bring in. If you're Chuck Fletcher, he did say this yesterday in his media availability, and you kind of saw it a few years ago that the trade deadline doesn't usually generate much in the way of hockey trades, but you're definitely laying the groundwork for what's going to happen in the offseason. And so he said he talked to just about every team in the league, and he knows just about what everybody's planning to do here. So, it's going to contribute to a very interesting summer.
Yeah, it's a big jump start on that get to know you. What are you looking for thing? To have that out of the way now. And hey, let's pick up our conversation from the deadline. You said you were looking for or were looking to shed, and you have those conversations and you rehash them. And Dylan Larkin's one of those guys I would certainly look at. I mean, all of a sudden you have Larkin in the middle, Couturier, assuming he comes back healthy. Kevin Hayes is a 3C. Lawton moves to a wing, and you're looking like a far different team.
Yeah, I mean, let's get it. Let's not forget that with the departure of Claude Giroux, now you got to replace him. So
exactly,
that'd be a good splash.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay tuned. Tim Saunders and Steve Coates, they've got the countdown to face off and all the first period action between the Flyers and the Red Wings. Stay tuned for Philadelphia Flyers hockey right after this on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.